a developing country like India needs to spend on welfare schemes. Money has to be dovetailed for projects, for building toilets, giving poor households access to cleaner, efficient fuels, and on upgrading infrastructure for health, hygiene, as well as education. During adversities like a pandemic, the state has to intervene with free ration and direct cash transfers. These are unavoidable must-do roles of any particular state. Now, this is also an investment for our future. But political populism promotes the use of exchequer for winning polls. Promises of mixer grinders, free water, electricity, laptops, bikes, mobiles, bus and train rides, even cash to a voter are a quick fix, not development measures. 1, it siphons the resources of the exchequer. 2, it creates a culture of rewards without creating any assets for our future. For example, in April 2020, when the pandemic hit India, people of Delhi may have been getting free bijli and pani. But data shows for 2 crore Delhiites, the public health system or the Sarkari system had only 55 ventilators. Yes, viewers, only 55 ventilators. That means 1 ventilator for 3.6 lakh people in the national capital. Let's see the national data now. There were only 16,000 odd ventilators in the entire country, in central as well as state health infrastructure. So when the first and the second wave came, the health infrastructure collapsed. Now that's just one example of the hidden cost of getting something free. Poll freebies aren't a boon. They are a shortcut to poll wins. Listen in to the reactions that we've got to what the power minister of the country had to say.
It is unfortunate if he is telling that there is a politics in some party in the states are playing. But it is not a case with the Maharashtra. Maharashtra is the only state who has given 24/7 power to their customers. And moreover, in this power crisis, also we are giving them 24/7 power to the people. And there was no load shedding in Maharashtra when the other states were having the load shedding. We have to pay the bills of the Coal India Limited. We have to pay the bills to the producers of electricity. We have to take loan from the banks also. Hence, there is no issue to give any concession or free electricity to the people.
So yes, there are many political parties which are announcing freebies just to gain votes. So these are two extremes. One, inefficient Modi government who cannot ensure proper procurement of coal and generation of power and supply it to the people at the peak of summer. And then another few political parties for the sake of votes announcing freebies. Both are not good for the country. We have managed the finances, we have managed the coal supply, we have managed the power generation, we have managed to keep the country running progressively. So these political parties and their agendas have always damaged the country.
And yes, we know that on power situation in the country, the centre and the states have been indulging in a shift the blame game. But today we're not discussing the blame game, but taking off on the spirit of what the power minister has said. Few months back, in a meeting with Prime Minister, top bureaucrats raised red flags over something which is dangled as poll carrot to citizens. Voters are expected to fall for the charm of freebies and ignore the overall lack of development. Indian states are in deep debt, not just because of development projects or the pandemic, but a bad habit called freebies or simply populist measures. So let's discuss tonight the high cost of freebies that eventually we, as the voters of this country, as the people of this country, are paying every time there is a surge in power demand. Joining us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening are my guests. We are joined by Tayal, who is a BJP leader, Rajiv Agrawal, Secretary General, ICPPA, Gurdeep Singh Sappal, Congress spokesperson joining us, Karthik Reddy, spokesperson of the TRS, Sunil Dahiya, who is an analyst at Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, also live with us on the broadcast this evening. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Gurdeep Singh Sappal, let me begin the discussion with you. Your first reaction to what the power minister of the country had to say. There are certain politicians who don't even care if their states go black in the long run. Is this culture of freebie, free bijli, leading to power cuts that we are facing today? Is that the only reason?
This is a very curious mixing of topics. As I would say that don't blame sun for the darkness of the night. You see, the coal shortage is also in those states which are ruled by BJP. So was power minister blaming his own BJP governments, 19 of them, that because of the freebies, the power crisis exists in those states? The problem is that there is a shortage of coal. On 26th of March, the Minister Prahlad Joshi, Cabinet Minister, said there's enough coal in the country. Only there are no enough facilities to transport them. Transport is a problem. And today we know that union government is forcing the states to buy imported coal and mix it with the local coal. Where is the problem of transport today? This was all a conspiracy unleashed in the last few years to weaken the coal sector of our country. And for the first time after independence, in 2018, our coal production stagnated. 2019, it went negative. 2020, it again went negative. This is a problem because they wanted imported coal to be there in India. And now when imported coal prices have gone up, they are finding excuses to justify the shortage of coal and blaming it on freebies. Let me also tell you, even if for a minute we say freebies do have a role, the total dues of Coal India Limited is 7% of its turnover, which is normal due for any corporate sector, any company, any business. So this is not the determining factor.
What is your view, Mr. Sappal? Can we blame freebies at all or no? That's my simple question to you.
Please tell me.
Are other factors also responsible?
No,
of course, we all know the answer to that question, but are freebies responsible or not?
Let me tell you, freebies can be defined differently. The way Aam Aadmi Party does it is a different way. The way BJP is giving it out, it calls it social justice. It's called social security. So issue is not the freebies. Issue is the way economy is being handled. In 2004, when BJP government was voted out, Vajpayee's government, then the total debt to GDP ratio was 85%. 10 years of UPA, we brought it down to 67%. Today, it is again 97%. Our debt to GDP ratio is 91%, sorry, not 97, 91%. Why did it go up? 80%. Why did it go up? The NPA has gone up to 5.26 lakh crore. The banking frauds are almost 11 lakh crores. 11 lakh crore is the banking fraud. So why the problem is the way economy has been handled by Modi government and the way coal sector has been destroyed by Modi government in favor of certain private players. And today they are forcing all these states to purchase imported coal because they did not work.
So this is just an excuse, is what the Congress party is saying. Freebies can't be blamed for the problem that we are seeing in our power sector. Very quickly, Mr. Sappal.
Will BJP spokesperson on this program tell us that the Coal India Limited's total asset value was 48,000 crore in 2012-13. Today it is 30,000 crore after 10 years. How did that happen? How did BJP endanger the energy security of this country? And now you are wanting
I will
us
get
to comment
BJP spokesperson to respond to that. But before that, let me also take the opening comments from Karthik Reddy, spokesperson of TRS, joining us. Your reaction to what the power minister has said. Because as far as Telangana is concerned, Telangana is also providing up to 250 units of electricity per month at free of cost to barber shops, laundry shops and dhobi ghats across the state.
Heena, you forget telling the viewers It's not just the barber shops or the dhobi guards. We are the only state in the country which gives out 24 hours quality electricity to our farmers. Good evening, and thanks for having me here, Heena. And I want to remind the viewers, Mr. Singh's comments were reckless and irresponsible. The reason I say this, before you point the finger towards anybody else, I think you somehow have to retrospectively think about what you're doing in your government. Point A, if freebies were such a crime, I want to ask Mr. R.K. Singh, why did Mr. Amit Shah, in the campaign of Uttar Pradesh, promise free power to all the farmers in the state for the next 5 years if Uttar Pradesh was voted in? Then this is an answer which Mr. R.K. Singh has to, this is a question Mr. R.K. Singh has to face. And point number 2, if freebies were the reason for the collapse of power sector in any state, and if the discoms were suffering because of the freebies and freebies only, I want to tell you again and remind you again, Telangana is the only state in the country which gives out 24 hours of free power to all its farmers, irrespective of timing. And it's also was capable enough to sufficiently produce and supply power to our domestic and industrial use. If I have to repeat it, we are the only state which gives free power to our farmers and sufficiently provide power to our industrial and domestic users. And I want to ask the Honorable Union Minister, if the small state like Telangana could have done it with its limited resources, why couldn't the union government do it? There is some hidden agenda of why the coal supply to the nation has been cut and why the coal supply was asked to import in this country. There is an hidden agenda. This power shortage is an artificially mutated situation. This is. So I want to remind and ask Mr. R.K. Singh, is this because of the freebies or is this because of your incompetence? And I want to blame the BJP-run central government. This is completely on you. The coal deficit and the power shortage is because of the incompetence of the central government.
Okay, so how will you like to respond, Dr. Dharinder Tayal? You've got the reaction from the Congress party as well as the TRS. What is going to be your response to the points that have been made?
I think these are very conveniently chosen data. And of course, as he says, that the coal shortage and the power shortage are all of artificial making. So obviously the heat wave is artificial and all the factors contributing the energy requirement increase, which has been because of the increase in the GDP and the production values that we are getting is all artificially created, because obviously the party in the center had no business creating or getting around a 7 to 8% GDP increase, which is going to increase the, and also when you are taking the electricity to every house and giving them electricity, the power requirement increases. It is artificially created. It's I think it's a logic which beats all limits of logic. On the other hand, when we say that the minister said that it is all due to freebies, let us understand that there are times when you need to look beyond the politics and look at the country. Now, freebies, there is a country right next to us in Sri Lanka which got tons of freebies, and look where it has landed them. So freebies, yes, I mean freebies could be there. Nobody is saying that where they are required they should not be there. They can be there, but then who is paying for it? It is who is going to pay the discounts in your budget? Do you have the potential to pay for that? So yes, there could be a DBT which goes directly so that at least the discounts get paid. That is one logic that has been put forward by so many. So we are here looking for those logics rather than trying to say today, if you're talking about the Congress spokesperson gave out some fantastic data. Now let me give him some data on what is owed to the Coal India Limited, which incidentally has assets of $24 billion. So that is the figure that is there. And Maharashtra owes 18,000 crores to the Genco and 2,600 crores to CIL. Tamil Nadu owes 823 crores, West Bengal 1066, Rajasthan 429. I mean, these are all the states, the top states, which are all opposition states. So when we are trying to throw some
And then there is a
stones,
BJP ruled state, Uttar Pradesh also.
No,
Dr.
in the
Tayal,
top- in
which,
the- in the top
as has
six-
been said in the debate also
in the-
already, which
Let me answer to this.
gave
In the
free
top six-
electricity for farmers, which announced free electricity for farmers, and that's a cost of 18,000 crore rupees. That's a burden when the state has a debt of about 6.62 lakh crore rupees. So here,
Good question,
the question
The
is very
figures-
simple. Are
the
these
figures-
freebies the reason that today we are facing power cuts?
I would say no.
No, these figures which
Let
I
me
have
answer to
given
the
you
question
are
raised.
the figures which are the owed to the Coal India Limited, and the tops in this are all Congress or opposition ruled
Okay.
states. They are just
Let me
not
answer to
paying
this,
up.
please.
Okay.
That's not true.
Hina, let me answer to this very briefly.
Okay, Mr. Sappal, very quickly,
Yeah.
10
2
seconds
points.
only. I have to go to my other guests
No,
as
no.
well. Quickly
Just
make your
2
point,
points.
very quickly.
Mr.
Yeah.
Tayal, number one, the last year's peak demand was 200.54 gigawatts. This year it has been 201. So if last year there was enough infrastructure to meet that demand, how can that infrastructure fall short this year, whereas the demand is same? And number two, can you please tell me the coal shortage is due to non-payment or non-availability? Has even for a day Coal India Limited said that it will not supply coal to the states because some outstanding payment is there? Has it said so far? Why are you mixing two things? No coal
Okay.
company has so far said that it
Okay.
will not supply coal
Okay,
because
I
there's an
know
outstanding
Karthik
payment.
Reddy also wants to
It is
respond,
not supplying
but
because
I
there's
will
a
quickly go
shortage
across
of
to
coal
my
supply.
other guests as well. Then I'll go across to Karthik Reddy. Okay, I got your point, Mr. Sappal. Now, Sunil Dahiya, you've heard, what the states have to say, what the center is saying. You are an analyst at the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, and your recent report has suggested that looking at the current situation, we need to brace for more power cuts, maybe more, a bigger power crisis in July, August. Who do you hold responsible for the situation that we are in today? Of course, there's not one reason. There are many reasons behind the power crisis that the country keeps on facing each time. But specifically, how will you respond to the point on this freebie culture?
Thanks, Heena, for the question. If I have to directly answer the question, there is no single political party or a state or the government which can be blamed for this, because coal has a big supply chain. And when we look into it, it also includes transportation to large distances. There are about 150 odd power plants which needs transportation through road or railway. So this is a crisis which could have been handled by governments at different levels. The central government, which manages the Central Electricity Authority, and the Ministry of Power, as well as Ministry of Coal, they had all the data. When last year in October we had a coal enough only for 4 days, and that stock was not replenished to the appropriate or normative levels of 26 days or 22 to 26 days. The maximum we could replenish it till January or Feb this year was 10 days, and that was not enough. Now we all know that monsoon is around the corner. It has already hit India, and that will impact the mining as well as loading and unloading of coal. So this was a proper lack of foresightedness by all the players, from mining to transportation to the even power generator. All the data is available with all the stakeholders. They can have a look at it, and never in last 1 year we had enough coal to meet the peak demand or energy demand which we are facing this summer. And let me also tell you that the peak demand which we faced is projected by Central Electricity Authority. It's not that this was something which came unannounced. Central Electricity Authority, which is a central government agency, also predicted that in March, April and May, we might have 208 gigawatt of peak demand. In July, August, it might go to 215, 16. And that's why we say that if we couldn't cater to, or we find difficult to cater to 207 or 208 gigawatt of demand because of lack of stock availability at coal-based power plants, July and August are going to be even harder because the supply of coal will be hit. Now there are multiple reasons. I can go into details of why did this happen and how railway also played a role in this. Maybe not directly, but if there would have been enough supply of coal through railway racks to the non-pit head power plants, we could have supplied at least 50 extra racks per day over last 1 year, which would have supplied coal to these power plants, and that would have replenished the stock. So it was either the lack of power plants buying coal, a lack of the regulator pointing them and telling them we are going to hit a summer where we'll need more electricity, so you have to stock, or lack of Coal India Limited and other producers to supply coal to them. So it cannot be pointed to just one agency. It's a management failure at different levels, and because of that, we face all these crises. And let me also
It's a management failure at different levels. Rajiv Agrawal, Secretary General, Indian Captive Power Producers Association, also is live with us on the broadcast. So eventually it's a payment crisis. But how significant is this aspect of freebie culture? Because now we know that Punjab, as promised, will be giving free electricity to the people of Punjab. But the free electricity option for people in Delhi is not going to be available any longer. In fact, people can choose to avail free electricity in case they wish to. So how do you see this freebie culture and the power cuts that we are seeing again and again in the country?
See, what I'm trying to say is, and earlier also on your show I have said, that it's not a matter of freebie alone. Freebie means it is one more inefficiency that we are bringing into the system, where we are asking someone else to pay, and they are the people who are actually suffering. Now, in this whole discussion for last 1 year, how industry is suffering, no one has even thought about it. No one has even talked about it. I belong to captive power generation sector. We produce power, but coal supply to us by rake has been stopped, virtually stopped. Now, what is happening is that captive power, the industries which are generating power, which are supposed to generate power, are not given coal. So they are again depending on state generating companies. Now, what is happening that in place of our producing the power, we are forced to buy power which is produced using the same coal by state discoms. So now this is what is happening in case of this whole freebie. As I've said earlier, 2014, something very similar happened. Then 2017, something very similar happened. And now 2021, something similar happened. Now, what is happening is that after a crisis, government stops supplies to industry and for captive power generation. They are forced to buy power from the state gencos.
Great.
After that, these people are forced to build up the stocks. Once the stock is built up, say at 30 days level or around 30 days level, as happened in 2020 also. After 2017, it took almost 2.5, 3 years for stock to be built up. So as of 1st of April 2020, stock was around 28.5 days on an average. Now, I'm not getting into the politics that BJP or non-BJP, but everyone was responsible for not maintaining those stocks. Now, why they are not maintaining stocks, despite Coal India saying that we are ready to supply, kindly take coal, because of their complete mess of finances. Now, what has happened is that in last 1 year, still like rakes which were allotted to captive power generations and industry in July last year are yet to be supplied. Now Coal India has said that we don't bother about the commercial contract. Against your requirements, even by road, where rail is not involved, they say we are going to give you only 75% of coal. And how they are going to give this 75% coal? They are not giving it on paper, but they are not allowing the trucks to enter, so that we are not able to pick up the coal. Now, the latest in May, whatever circular has come from Coal India head office to different subsidiaries, after that, those subsidiaries has given an unofficial word to each and everyone within their company that Beyond 65%, they will not allow us to lift coal. Now, this is
So,
where...
Mr. Agarwal, are you then trying to suggest that only by talking about freebie culture, maybe center is just trying to put the blame on, some states maybe which announce free Bijli and not ready to take the responsibility of mismanagement at its own level? Because the availability of rakes is a big issue. Climatic factors are another, very, very important things we do not really look at. Yes, Mr.
As I told in the beginning, that freebie is one of the inefficiencies that we are bringing into the system. So we cannot deny that freebie has nothing to do with that. But at the same time, the indifferent attitude...
So if we eliminate this freebie culture, how much do you think the problem is likely to get solved? Do you think it will significantly help the power sector?
See, if you are ready to eradicate freebie culture, it means you are ready to look at your basics.
You have to bear with me.
Look at the basics, then the things can be done.
You have to bear with me in this.
Okay.
It has to.
Karthik Reddy wants to come in.
In this whole debate for the last 10 minutes, there are two things very clearly that we understand.
Very clearly defined in the interview, Mr.
Agarwal, 1 second. I will come back to you. Karthik Reddy wants to make a point. I'll come back to you, Mr. Agarwal.
Yeah, so what Mr.
In this whole debate,
Mr. Singh had said that they are taking up further measures where every state cabinet has agreed to follow certain discipline, financial discipline.
Mr. Agarwal, I will just interrupt you there. Mr. Agarwal, I will come back to you in just a bit. Karthik Reddy wants to make a point. Yes, go ahead.
In this debate, it is sufficiently clear, Heena, that there are two models right now in the country. Let's assume there is this Telangana model, there's this Telangana power policy, where we are able to give free power 24/7 to our agriculture sector and also manage to give not free power, quality power to our industry and domestic sectors also. We have been shelving out nothing more than 800 to 900 crores. 800 to 900 crores when it comes to supplying power to the farmers. And we have a budget of more than 1.5 lakh crores. This is not a small state, and this is not a small budget. If any state is not able to dole out an amount of 1,000 crores on average for its most backward and socially degraded society, that's the farmers of this country, and there's something substantially wrong with the policies that we are designing for this country. In Telangana, in the Telangana model, from the day this state has come into commission, we have developed our power infrastructure. We have doubled our coal-based thermal power plants. We have tripled our renewables, which is a solar-based and also a hydro-based power plants. And we also managed to have in-capacity biomass and other power plants, which were kept in emergency, the need for emergency. Now, let's take the other model, which is the union government's model. As my friend, my dear analyst from the panel has mentioned, that few of my analysts here were very picky in not naming the union government, but we are smart enough to understand the blame completely lies on them. There have been the responsibility of supplying coal, the responsibility of transmitting power, and the responsibility of collecting the dues is completely on the union government. If Mr. Dayal is trying to tell me, अरे यार इसका डिमांड बढ़ गया, हम सप्लाई नहीं कर सके, तो ये इसका जिम्मेदारी कौन उठाएंगे? Who is responsible for this fallout? It is your responsibility to identify the growth and the demand which might come 3 months from now and prepare well in ahead. If it's coal or it is solar or whatever my means of power supply might that be, or power might that be. But when you tell us and you tell the country that Telangana ne free power de diya, hum isliye coal power supply nahi kar sak rahe. Maharashtra is giving free power, that's why we are not able to do. Aren't you agreeing to some level that we have failed? And there are two models. These are the two models the country has to identify, has to also study. There is this Telangana model. We have been successfully doing this for the last 5 years. And there is also the union government's model. And what Mr.
Since this has been put up to me...
Okay, Mr. Rajiv Agarwal wants to respond, then Dr. Dharinder Tayal. Yes, Mr. Rajiv Agarwal, quickly respond.
I'm asking what was coal stock
Yes,
as of
Mr. Sappal, after
1st
that.
April 2020 and 2021. That will explain everything of the
Exactly.
model. So can you tell what was the stock? It was less than 15 days.
Now, who's
Against
responsible
30
for this, Mr. Agarwal? Who should be have been responsible for this? It's a Coal India
Only
Limited,
state.
isn't it?
Only state, because up to 2020, 28 days stock, 29 days stock was maintained after cutting coal from the industry. And in
Correct.
1 year, you virtually wiped out that stock to 15 days and less than 15 days level. Who has to be blamed?
Correct. Correct.
So
He is correct.
So all other arguments go flat on that. That's it.
Yeah, in fact, that is what I wanted to add here.
Dr. Dharinder Tayal.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say here, that the Coal India Limited had said that we've got 100 million tons of coal, but the states are not coming forward to pick it up, and there is only so much that we can stock. Now, the states did not have the states did not have the money. They did not come forward. The stock was there. One. The second point which I want to make is I want to call the lies that have been put up by the Congress spokesperson, who said that the highest peak demand was somewhere last year. I would like to inform him that the highest peak demand was this year on the 26th of April. It was 201.066 gigawatts. Also, he had earlier mentioned.
What was last year? What was last year?
Let me complete. In March this year.
What was last year? It was
in March this year
Discussion is
itself. I'm giving you the data, my friend. I didn't interrupt when you were speaking. You gave me data. I'm giving you data.
Okay, one at a time, gentlemen. Let's have a civil debate. It's a very, very important issue that we are discussing tonight.
In March itself, this year, there was a 8.9% demand, and now the freebies, the effect of freebies is very evident when the Punjab power minister says that I will try during the paddy season to give 8 hours of supply. And what is happening in Punjab now? Let us look at the national wastage in Punjab, where you are saying anybody.
Mr. Tayal, you know the states ruled by Bharatiya Janata Party are equally bad when it comes to giving freebies. I have just now mentioned about the state of Uttar Pradesh, and today, let me give you some data. UP has to pay, one second, Dr. Dharinder Tayal. Today, Uttar Pradesh as a state has to pay 20,940 crore rupees for subsidy. UP government departments have to pay 10,000 crore to discoms. That is another issue that is staring each one of us. And isn't it a result of the freebie culture? You're not taking money from consumers, even though consumers can afford to pay for the power they are consuming, and you're not paying that money to the discoms, and eventually, we as consumers continue to suffer. Mr. Sappal wanted to come in and respond. Yes, Mr. Sappal, go ahead. You've been a journalist, and I want you to respond as a journalist today. Wear a journalist hat and tell us, is the freebie culture hurting us as consumers of this country or not in the power situation?
In 2-3 points. Number one, freebie issue is different. The coal shortage is different. You cannot mix two things. As I have said, not a single day any coal company has said that they will not allow lifting of coal because of non-payment. Had that been the case, maybe we could have linked it.
But today I specifically want to talk about the freebie culture. One second, Mr. Sappal. As far as Punjab is concerned, it has a history of making high subsidy commitments and delaying payments to discoms. When your party was in power, the situation was no different, sir.
Your entire program is about power situation. You started with the statement of power minister. You cannot ask us to go and divert to freebies. I will talk about power situation. Just now, Mr. Tayal said there's enough.
He has questioned the freebie culture.
Please,
he has slammed the freebie culture. He has said there are certain politicians who don't even care if their states go black in the long run. He has hit out at certain political parties, certain politicians. Go ahead, Mr. Sappal.
Am I allowed to speak? Please allow me to speak, Mr. Agarwal. Allow me to speak. I am exposing
Mr. Sappal, only Mr. Sappal will speak right now. Then I'll go across to other guests.
This is what I want to expose today. That Power Minister, Mr. R.K. Singh, tried to divert the failure of his government on freebies, which is the fact is, just now Mr. Tayal said there's enough coal with Coal India. Then why is Power Ministry forcing states to import coal now? Why are they asking? states to purchase imported coal if you have indigenous coal today enough? Because there's not enough coal. Number two, he again tried to confuse about the peak power situation. What I said was last year the peak demand was 200.54 gigawatt. This year it is little about 201, which is just half a gigawatt more. So you want to tell us that with CEA able to predict the power requirement, where you are asking for a V-shaped recovery of economy, and this government has not prepared itself for the power supply in this country? This is what you are telling us, that this government has just not worked on the power requirement, which will be required by the recovering economy after COVID. Is this government? So they have failed in predicting the power consumption. They have failed in increasing the coal supply.
You know, here I'm questioning both the center as well as the states, because I, as a consumer, I am facing power cuts today, and my question today is about the freebie culture that exists. You are saying that, you know, the issues are different. One second, gentlemen. 1 second. I know all of you want to respond, but Mr. Sappal, one at a time. 1 second. Hear my point first. 1 second. You know, states do not earn to pay for electricity that they get from discoms. Discoms do not pay GenCos. GenCos don't pay for coal. So it is a cycle. Eventually, who is suffering? We, the consumers, are suffering. You promise us free electricity to get our votes. You come to power. What do you give us in return? Power cuts.
Power cut is not because
Correct
of that
me if I'm
cycle.
wrong.
Power cut is because there's not enough coal, which the central government has mismanaged badly over last 4 years.
Mr.
This
Sappal,
is the reality.
So you are saying that freebies aren't responsible. You are saying freebies aren't responsible. Okay, Dr. Tayal, please respond. Freebies aren't responsible. The availability of coal is the problem. Then Sunil Dahiya. Okay, gentlemen. Now one at a time. You've made your point, Mr. Sappal. You've made your point. Dr. Tayal first, then Mr. Dahiya. He's been waiting for quite some time. Yes.
As Mr. Agarwal is also saying, and I have said earlier, there is enough coal around. Yes, it is also being imported because there is also the calorific value of the imported coal, which is different from the Indian coal, which gives a higher production.
Is this calorific?
Does it also not reflect poor planning by the center and the states, Dr. Tayal, then? You are asking the states to import, you are making it expensive.
Can I complete what I am saying? Mr. Sappal?
Dr. Tayal.
I think we were all kind enough to listen to you. Even though it was packed with lies, we still listened to you. So, so there is enough coal. I also mentioned there was 100 million tons of coal available, which they did not pick, and Mr. Agarwal has made that point, that it is a requirement that those states which are far from the pit head, they have to maintain 26 days of stock, which was nowhere near being maintained. Now that is where the suffering came up from, and now there's an attempt to pass it on to the center, which has made all the arrangements. They've in fact even allowed higher blending. Now another very interesting argument which was given by Mr. Sappal was that this has been done with an ulterior motive because our production has not been increased. I'd like to tell him that over a base of 395, there has been an addition of 116 gigawatts. Now, if we give all the previous time to the Congress government and say till 2014 it was you, and you generated 400 gigawatts, and in this much of time the BJP government has added 116, I think there is something very seriously to be thought about as to what you were doing over all those years. So let us understand.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sappal. Quickly make your point, then I have to go across to my viewers as well.
Mr. Tayal, please
quickly
tell me why twice in last 1 year, Government of India gave statements and press releases that it has asked Coal India Limited to increase coal supply if the issue was only transportation by the states.
Is there something wrong with that?
Please. No,
is there something wrong in doing that?
You
yourself mentioned that has Coal India Limited ever refused anybody from supplying coal from Coal India? So that is to the credit of the central government.
On account of payment. It has refused because of supply, not because of payment.
Okay, gentlemen, 1 second. You know, calm down, both of you. Let me, 1 second. Let's also hear what the people who've been watching this debate have to say. What do they want, and whether they consider consider the freebie culture the right thing for them or not? Then I'll go across to Mr. Dahiya. Okay, Mr. Agarwal, 1 second. Let's also hear what the people have to say. Okay, no, the issue is only about freebies. We are bothered about it because it is draining the discoms, because it is impacting us. That's the reason why we are discussing it. Okay, 1 second. Let me hear what the people also have to say. Some of the viewers have been calling us because numbers are flashing on the screen. Major Samra is joining us on the phone line from Ludhiana. Good evening. Thank you for calling us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. What do you prefer? Paying your bill for power, for consuming electricity, or power cuts like what we are seeing right now, or freebies?
Now, what do you prefer? Paying your bill for power, for consuming electricity?
Could you put your phone on mute, Major Samra?
Like what we are seeing right now.
Thank you, beta, for allowing me after waiting so many minutes. Let me just clarify. There are politicians debating the issue. I'm not mute. Can you hear me?
Just put your television on mute. We can hear you, Major Samra.
Politicians sitting on the debate. They have one system. Can you hear me? Yeah. But they have.
I did not understand a word that gentleman had to put.
Okay, I don't think we are able to hear him. We have Anil Sood, another viewer, joining us from the national capital. Good evening. Thank you for calling us here on Urban Debate. Go ahead.
Good evening, Heena. I have two quick short observations. The subsidy is nothing but robbing Peter to pay Paul. The government is paying our taxes, charges to the discoms under the garb of subsidy. It's a big fraud. Number one. Number two, the same Union Minister for Power 3 years ago said that 1 lakh crore worth of power gets lost from generation up to the distribution stage. Who is responsible for that? And the third quick observation, the coal shortage is by design, just to excavate the coal and destroy the forest. Our coal is poor quality. Our coal is does not have that calorific value, and our mining cost is very high. Why can't we save our forest and import the coal from Australia and other countries? Just like Japan. Japan doesn't have many things on its list, but they are importing and they are saving their...
Well, I don't think the government will really like the suggestion you're giving, but Mr. Anil Sood, appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now and sharing with us your perspective. We have Mr. Manohar joining us from the national capital. Go ahead. Good evening.
Hello, good afternoon.
Mr. Sappal, 1 second.
Hello.
Yes,
Heena?
Mr. Manohar.
Yeah, I have to say this
Yes.
on freebie, which all the politicians are talking about. As far as Delhi is concerned, hello, can you hear me? Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Manohar, we can hear you.
Delhi's freebie is very intelligently planned. 200 units are meant to be used by... You are able to hear me?
Yes, Mr. Manohar, loud and clear.
Yeah. Economical weaker section, and that will help them to raise their standard. They are in very bad shape, and also in freebie, what people are saying, he is charging for the extra charges on consumption of more than 400 units, and this and Tatas have taken over.
All right.
Since then, there is no theft of electricity, there's no load shedding, there's no fluctuation, and we are happy to contribute those free 200 units. And what
All right,
people are...
Mr. Manohar, thank you.
Can I make my point quickly?
Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate and sharing with us your perspective. We have Anita joining us from the National Capital. I know all my guests want to respond. Let me just hear from two more viewers who are, connected with us. Anita is with us from the National Capital. Good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Nina. Most of the things my other viewers have already spoken about. What I have to say, only two things very quickly. Number one, freebies are okay for the poor people, but they should be limited to the extent they can afford. And second thing is, after freebies, what discounts are doing, they are charging the general public at a much higher rate. So there should not be so much of disparity. I'm not against freebies, but what I'm saying is that freebies for only poor people is okay. For general public, they can charge some amount.
Okay.
Number two, all these politicians, when they discuss the recommended debate, it's so ironical that instead of trying to find a way out, they just keep on blaming each other. In the last 70 years, I'm not 70 years old, I'm much younger, but during my tenure, I have seen Congress. There was far more. The electricity situation was so bad, 6 to 8 hours electricity gone in the day, at the dead of the night. At least now we are getting electricity. At least now we are getting it consistently. So, and these have so much other ways to produce. Look at the world reeling under.
But people are ready to pay. That's the point that you're making, Miss Anita. Appreciate you calling us here on Urban Debate and sharing with us your perspective. Interesting point you have made. Okay, now, gentlemen, I have very little time left on the show. So I want to give you 10 seconds each. And you have to finish your point in those 10 seconds. Let's begin with Mr. Sappal. Just 10 seconds I have. Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Closing comments.
Power was a problem before UPA came. The entire power production was 1 gigawatt in 2004. We planned for power infrastructure. By the time we went out, it was 2.5 gigawatt. And by the time those projects were completed, it was 3.27 and 24-hour electricity is our contribution to this country, none else. But the coal required for them is not being supplied. And that gentleman who said that why not import cheaper coal? Yes, this government started importing cheaper coal in 2018 and because that was cheap and sacrificed our own production. So 2018, 19, 20, our coal production
Now,
suffered.
I just have 10 seconds for the remaining guest, Karthik Reddy. Closing comments.
The present power shortage is not because of freebies in states. It is because of the policies taken by the union government. It has been 8 long years, Heena. It is an embarrassment for us to say, and it's an embarrassment for the Honorable Minister to accept that we are not able to supply power because there has been coal shortage. And whose primary responsibility it is to procure coal? It is the Coal Corporation of India. It is the CIL. It is their primary responsibility. And let me remind you, let's be a little sensible. Let's plan ahead. Take Telangana as a model. We have the highest per capita requirement of any state, yet we met our all demands. Please learn from us and please emulate.
Okay, Dr. Dharinder Tayal. 10 seconds only, please. I request all to now stick to the time.
One thing I would certainly like to tell Mr. Reddy, among other things, that farmers in the country are not degraded. So we respect our farmers, but moving away from there, the point is that the distribution, one of your viewers said distribution is a major issue, and the central government has really tightened the knots as far as distribution is concerned. And unless the losses come down, the free or money which was coming in from REC and PFC is not going to be available. So the central government is doing everything within its might, but the states have to fall in line. The states have to cut their losses, and they have to maintain the level of
states have to fall in line. That's what the BJP says. Rajiv Agrawal, 10 seconds, please.
Why are your states not falling in line? They are also suffering the energy crisis.
All states need to fall.
Why is it that your
Mr.
states...
Sappal, yes. Mr. Agrawal, can you hear me?
I know there are very few, but as many are there, they are all falling behind. What is the reason for that?
Mr. Agrawal?
Not us.
Okay, I don't think. Could you unmute yourself, Mr. Agrawal?
I will like to bring one more variable into this discussion. That is the inefficiency of coal mining by Coal India, where they claim their mining cost at pithead is around 1,300 rupees, whereas a private sector miner is doing the same thing in around 350 rupees to 550 rupees. Now, on that, all the taxes, royalties, and everything is getting added up. As a result, the same coal is actually made available to user, whether it is private sector industry, to around 3,000 rupees, to discoms at around 2,000 rupees. Now, this has to change. We have to come back to the purchasing
Sunil Dahiya,
power parity.
closing comments. If these issues that have been discussed in the debate today are not fixed as soon as possible, what should we be prepared for?
Heena, I would like to start with saying that this is not a crisis which has happened for the first time. It's been repeated in 2017. We had the water shortage, and because of that, coal-based power plants were shut down. In 2020 or 2021, we had the coal shortage, and this time it's the transportation shortage which has been highlighted in the region. So this all is a problem with the coal sector and our huge reliance or high reliance on the coal sector, and that's where we need to plan forward and move forward with. We need to diversify to renewable energy, and if we do that at a decentralized level, we'll also be
We need to look at alternative sources of energy as well. That's an important point you have made. I'm completely out of time now. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Heading into a short break, market guru Nilesh Shah joins us on what to expect from the Reserve Bank of India tomorrow. Stay with us.